Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a conflict that honestly seemed almost unbelievable at the time, the Falklands War of 1982. Our main source is Duncan Anderson's The Falklands War, 1982, part of the Essential Histories series. It gives a really vivid picture.
It really does. I mean, you have to picture it. A war nearly 8,000 miles from the UK,
Yeah.
800 miles from Antarctica, winter setting in fast,
Right.
and the British task force. Hugely outnumbered in the air, relying on missile systems that hadn't really been combat-proven. A lot of people thought, frankly, it couldn't be done.
And what strikes you immediately is that it wasn't just about the islands, was it? It was about what the whole thing represented.
Exactly. For both sides.
So our mission today is to unpack the misperceptions that led to it all, the incredible logistics involved, those key battles, and, the consequences, long-lasting consequences for everyone.
From the superpowers down to the islanders themselves.
Let's start right there with how it even happened. The source calls it a tango and tea dance of misperceptions. That's quite a phrase.
It is, isn't it? And it points to this really long, complicated backstory between Britain and Argentina. I mean, did you know back in 1807, a British force actually got defeated in Buenos Aires?
Really?
Yeah, by colonial militia. And that defeat, kind of ironically, helped spark Argentina's independence and then led to this quite strong Anglo-Argentine relationship, lots of British investment, an elite with British ties, even royal connections.
But hanging over all that was this one issue, the Falklands,
Yeah,
or Las Malvinas.
always there. Argentina inherited Spain's claim around 1820. Britain reasserted its own claim in 1833, set up a colony.
And over 150 years, you get this unique islander culture developing. Fiercely British, apparently.
Very much so. Even though the population was tiny, peaked at about 2,400 people back in the 30s, down to maybe 2,000 by 1980.
So why did Argentina push its claims so hard, especially after World War II, going to the UN and all that?
Well, the key moment seems to be UN Resolution 2065 back in 1965. It called for negotiations.
Yeah.
But crucially, it said they should bear in mind the interests of the islanders, not their wishes.
Subtle but important difference.
Huge difference. And Argentina really seized on that distinction. That became their diplomatic angle.
And meanwhile, the British Foreign Office, the source suggests they weren't entirely opposed to the idea of handing over sovereignty.
It seems that way sometimes. Discouraging investment, making the islands dependent on Argentina for flights.
But the islanders themselves pushed back.
Oh, yeah. Through groups like the Falkland Islands Committee in London, they had enough political weight to stop an outright transfer.
Okay, so you have this deadlock. What then tips it towards actual conflict? What signals did Argentina misread?
Well, the source talks about these straws in the wind from different parts of the British government.
Right.
Things Argentina saw as proof Britain was backing away, like the 1981 Nationality Act that took away automatic British citizenship for the islanders. Then the Antarctic Survey Base was under review. And the big one, the 1981 Defense Review.
That was the plan to cut the Navy significantly.
Exactly. Scrap a third of the surface fleet, including the carriers Hermes and Invincible, and crucially, withdrawing the Antarctic patrol ship, HMS Endurance.
The only ship permanently stationed down there.
Precisely. So the Argentine Junta General Galtieri, Admiral Anaya, who was apparently very anti-British, they looked at all this and basically concluded, Britain won't fight for these islands.
So they started planning Project Alpha, Operation Azul.
Yeah, Alpha was the sort of sneaky approach, put some people on South Georgia. Azul was the full invasion plan.
And Project Alpha kicks off with this Davidoff incident, scrap metal workers.
That's right. December 81 they land, supposed to dismantle an old whaling station on South Georgia. Then in March 82 they raised the Argentine flag, refused to follow British procedures.
A minor thing, you might think.
The British ambassador thought so. But the governor in the Falklands, Rex Hunt, saw it as a major provocation. He sent HMS Endurance with some Royal Marines to check it out.
And the media reaction in Britain?
Huge storm over Endurance. Rumors flying about nuclear subs being sent. This seems to have panicked Admiral Anaya into speeding up the main invasion plan, Operation Azul.
So by late March, the invasion force is already sailing. Operation Rosario, they called it.
The wheels were very much in motion, and Britain's GCHQ, their signals intelligence agency, they picked up radio traffic on March 26th. Then a specific order, land reconnaissance troops on April 2nd.
Wow. So Governor Hunt and Major Norman in Stanley had, hours?
Just hours to get ready. They had about 68 Royal Marines, 25 local defense volunteers, maybe a dozen sailors from Endurance. That was it.
Against a full invasion force.
The Argentines hit at dawn, 6 a.m., April 2nd. The Marines fought hard, knocked out an amphibious vehicle, held off the first attacks on Government House.
But the numbers.
Completely overwhelming, running out of ammo. Governor Hunt surrendered around 9:30 a.m. A day later, South Georgia fell too, after a short fight where the Argentines took some hits.
Okay, so Argentina has the islands. What was the immediate reaction back in Britain? Intel initially said it was too risky to fight back, right?
Yeah, the initial military advice was pretty bleak. 8,000 miles, logistics, air cover, very problematic.
Thatcher.
Thatcher felt differently, felt Britain had to respond. And then Admiral Sir Henry Leach, the head of the Navy, gave that famous advice.
The word counts for very little line.
Exactly. If you don't act, Britain becomes a nation whose promises mean nothing. That appeal to sort of national honor really resonated with her. Orders went out that night. Prepare a task force.
And the public mood. You mentioned Britain was in a bit of a rough spot economically, socially.
Morale was low, yeah. Riots, unemployment. But then these pictures came out. Royal Marines captured, face down.
I remember those.
Caused national outrage. Lord Carrington, the Foreign Secretary, resigned, took the blame. But Thatcher was resolute. Operation Corporate was on.
So Britain's officially talking diplomacy, but really the military clock is ticking.
Pretty much. The new Foreign Secretary, Francis Pym, he did try for a compromise. But Thatcher, and certainly the public by this point, wanted full withdrawal, nothing less.
The war cabinet gets formed, tight control, and the diplomatic push.
Very effective, actually. They got UN Resolution 502 condemning the invasion. The French stopped selling Exocet missiles to Argentina. And the EEC, the European community back then, imposed a trade embargo.
But the big one was the U.S., wasn't it? Argentina hoped for their support.
They did. Galtieri had some connections. But push came to shove. The U.S. sided with Britain, their main NATO ally. Caspar Weinberger, the defense secretary, famously said, "Give them everything they need, just don't get caught doing it."
So covert support, how vital was that?
Absolutely critical, especially the use of Ascension Island as a staging post. Without that, the whole thing would have taken far longer, maybe run right into the worst of the winter. Game changer.
Right. So while diplomats are talking, the ships are sailing. Hermes, Invincible leave April 5th. Then the liners, Canberra, QE2.
Requisitioned, yeah. Ascension Island turns into this massive hub. Thousands of flights, ships coming and going, an 8,000-mile supply chain.
Just staggering logistics.
Over 80 ships in the end. 30,000 tons of freight. Thousands of troops. Plus, you had 3 nuclear subs racing ahead to enforce a blockade.
And in the air, just 20 Harriers.
20 Sea Harriers against maybe 120 Argentine jets. But the British ships had good missile defenses, Sea Dart, Sea Wolf.
Meanwhile, in the Falklands, General Menendez is trying to set up a defense.
Yes, but it's chaotic. They fly in about 10,000 troops, tons of supplies, but it's rushed. Equipment gets separated from units, heavy gear is delayed.
And it's a conscript army, mostly.
Unlike Britain's professionals. Plus, lots of infighting between the Argentine services, interference from the junta back home. It really hampered their defense planning.
And the Argentine Air Force, they had fast jets, but couldn't use Stanley Airfield properly.
Right. The runway was too short and basic for their Mirages and Skyhawks. So they had to fly from the mainland, over 400 miles away.
Which means?
Very little time over the islands, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And they only had 3 tanker aircraft for refueling. A huge disadvantage. The Navy, worried about British subs, mostly stayed in port, too.
So the defense really fell on Menendez and his, 13,000 conscripts dug in around Stanley.
Yeah, his plan was basically dig in, make the British bleed for every yard, and hope their logistics break down before Stanley falls. An attritional fight.
For those first few weeks, Argentina still thought Britain might be bluffing.
It seems so. But then came April 25th. The British retook South Georgia.
How did that go?
Almost bloodless, actually. Quick surrender, 137 prisoners. But it sent a clear message. Britain was serious. News hit London, big celebrations, peace plans got rejected, the war was properly on.
May 1st. The Vulcan bomber raid, that must have been quite something.
Incredible feat of airmanship, an 8,000-mile round trip from Ascension. Just one bomb hit the runway, but it cratered it. Then the Harriers went in.
And Woodward's plan was to draw the Argentine Air Force out.
Exactly. And it worked. Over 40 Argentine planes attacked the fleet. But the Harriers, especially with their new AM-9L Sidewinder missiles.
The all-aspect ones.
Yeah, they could lock on from almost any angle. They shot down several Argentine jets. First blood to the Harriers.
Then comes the Belgrano. That feels like a real turning point.
Huge moment. HMS Conqueror, the submarine, had been tracking it. Woodward, the task force commander, was worried the Belgrano group might swing north and threaten his carriers with its exocets.
Even though it was an old ship.
Old, yes, survived Pearl Harbor. But it did have exocets, so Woodward got permission, and the Conqueror fired 2 old-style Mark 8 torpedoes.
And the loss of life.
Tragic. 368 Argentines died. It caused uproar internationally, especially as it was outside the declared exclusion zone. Argentina rejected a peace plan from Peru straight after. It hardened the conflict. But for Woodward, it worked.
Yeah.
The main Argentine naval threat was gone. Their fleet went back to port and stayed there.
But the Argentines hit back hard just days later. May 4th, HMS Sheffield.
Yeah, that was a shock. 2 superintendent jets, refueled midair, came in low, launched their exocets.
And the missile hit, but didn't explode.
That's right. But the impact, the unspent rocket fuel, devastating fire. 20 sailors killed. First Royal Navy warship lost in action since WW2.
So Woodward pulls the carriers further east, creating bomb alley for the ships closer in.
Exactly, out of exocet range. But the ships supporting the eventual landing were still vulnerable to air attack. He started using this 42-22 combo, pairing destroyers with Sea Dart missiles, with frigates carrying the close-in Seawolf system, a missile trap. It started to work, attriting the Argentine Air Force.
So the Brits were winning the air-sea battle slowly, but time was running out, winter approaching.
Precisely. And Special Forces kept up the pressure. The SAS raid on Petal Island, destroying 11 Pucara ground attack aircraft on the ground. That was a big blow.
All leading up to the main landing. How did they choose San Carlos water?
Based on good intelligence, some local knowledge. It was sheltered, surrounded by hills giving missile cover from sea-level attacks. And crucially, it was lightly defended. Seemed the best bet.
But even getting ready for the landing had its tragedies. The helicopter crash.
Yeah, very sad. A Sea King helicopter transferring SAS troops between ships in bad weather crashed into the sea. 12 men lost. A grim start to D-Day, May 20th, 21st.
May 21st. 4,000 troops land. Almost no opposition on the beaches.
Surprisingly little. The Argentines were caught off guard by the location. But then came Bomb Alley.
The air attacks.
Relentless. Argentine pilots flew incredibly bravely, coming in low, aiming for the warships. Lots of bombs hit, but because they were dropped so low, many failed to arm themselves. They didn't explode.
But some did. HMS Ardent was sunk.
Yes, heavily damaged and eventually sank. Others hit too. The attacks went on for days.
May 25th, Argentina's National Day. A bad day for the British.
A very bad day. HMS Coventry on radar picket duty was hit by 3 bombs and sank quickly. 19 dead.
And then the Atlantic Conveyor.
Later that same day, another exocet attack by superintendents. They were probably aiming for the carriers again, Hermes or Invincible.
But they hit the container ship instead.
Yes. And the Atlantic Conveyor was carrying almost all the task force's heavy lift helicopters. Chinooks, Wessex, plus tents, spares, runway matting.
Losing those helicopters, that must have completely changed the land campaign plan.
Devastating blow. Brigadier Thompson's plan for a quick helicopter-borne advance on Stanley, out the window. Now, most of the troops would have to walk. The famous Yamp or Tab.
Across East Falkland, what was that like?
Just brutal. Men carrying huge loads, 80 pounds, maybe more, sinking into peat bogs up to their waists, boots falling apart, constant cold, wet, freezing rain, snow squalls.
Miserable.
Diarrhea was rife. Trench foot started appearing.
Yeah.
The source quotes one soldier saying they look like a rag-and-bone army within 2 weeks.
And the contrast with the Argentines.
Stark. Many Argentine conscripts, especially those from warmer parts of Argentina, suffered terribly, living in waterlogged trenches, poor sanitation, often short of food, even though there were stockpiles in Stanley. The distribution was terrible.
But British morale held up.
Remarkably well, considering mail from home helped hugely, and sheer resourcefulness. Improvising shelters, foraging for sheep, finding mussels, even wild celery scurvy grass to ward off vitamin deficiencies.
Back in London, the War Cabinet is feeling the pressure, diplomatic pressure mounting.
Definitely. More UN ceasefire calls, the U.S. getting twitchy. They wanted action, a quick victory. So on May 26th, orders came from HQ Northwood, launched 2 attacks, one on Darwin and Goose Green, the other towards Stanley.
Darwin-Goose Green, that was 2 pairs objective under Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones.
Yes. The idea was to clear out the Argentine position there, remove the threat from Pucara aircraft based nearby.
But the element of surprise was lost.
Completely. The BBC reported the impending attack. Jones thought he was facing maybe 500 Argentines. The real number was over 1,500, well dug in.
So the battle, May 28th, it was
Incredibly tough. Pouring rain, close quarters fighting. Colonel Jones was famously killed leading an attack on a machine gun post. awarded a posthumous Victoria Cross.
Situation sounded desperate at times.
It was that famous radio call, "Cook to Enterprise! Beam me up!"
But command passed to Major Chris Keeble. He reorganized, used flanking attacks, mortars.
And eventually they took it.
After a full day's fighting, yes, and then the surrender. The British expected a few hundred prisoners. 1,300. Astonishing. A victory against the odds.
And the source puts that down to
Those unquantifiable factors.
Wow.
Leadership, training, morale, fighting spirit. It boosted British morale massively, and it reinforced Menendez's mistaken belief that the main British push would come from the south, near Stanley.
So with Goose Green secured, the focus shifts fully to Stanley.
Right. The SAS had already secured Mount Kent, a key high point overlooking Stanley, and found a crucial Argentine map showing their defensive position.
Very useful. By early June, 3 commando brigades establishing forward bases, like at Teal Inlet. But conditions are still grim for the troops. Cold, wet, supply issues.
Major General Jeremy Moore arrives to take overall command on land.
Yes, and more pressure from London for speed. Another UN ceasefire resolution looming. Moore needs to get 5 infantry brigade, their reinforcements who arrived on the QE2 into the fight.
But without helicopters.
Most of them had to march from San Carlos, too. And this leads to another tragedy. June 8th, Fitzroy.
The attack on Sir Galahad and Sir Tristram.
Yeah. Landing ships, unloading troops, mostly Welsh guards. Argentine Skyhawks got through. Sir Galahad was hit badly, huge fires, 46 killed, 150 injured. The single biggest loss of life for the British in one incident.
What went wrong?
The source calls it an accretion of errors. Bad luck, maybe some communication issues, left the ships vulnerable during daylight unloading. A terrible blow just before the final push.
But despite that, the attacks on the mountains around Stanley go ahead, night of June 11th, 12th.
They had to press on. 3 major assaults that night. Mount Longdon, 2 Sisters, Mount Harriet.
Longdon sounds particularly fierce. 3 para.
A veritable cut-down version of Monte Cassino, the source says. Attacked silently, then intense fighting. Sergeant Ina McKay won a posthumous VC there. 10 hours of combat, 23 paras killed. Tough Argentine resistance.
2 Sisters and Mount Harriet.
45 Commando took 2 Sisters with a flanking attack, their famous Zulu war cry. 42 Commando took Mount Harriet, also using surprise and flanking relatively quickly. Lots of prisoners taken there.
So 3 key peaks taken, but artillery was running low.
Critically low.
Yeah.
So the next phase, attacking Tumbledown Mountain and Wireless Ridge, was delayed a day until June 13th, 14th.
Pull down. That was the Scots Guards.
Yes, another really hard fight against dug-in Argentine Marines. Diversionary attack, then a main assault. Stalemate for hours, then a final push. Bayonets fixed, broke the defense.
Wireless Ridge, 2 para again.
Yes, and this time with massive fire support, everything the British had. Artillery, 6,000 shells, apparently naval guns, tanks, mortars.
Overwhelming firepower.
It finally broke the Argentine morale on that flank. They started to fall back under the barrage.
So by dawn, June 14th.
The whole Argentine defensive line around Stanley had basically collapsed. Troops were streaming back into the town, disorganized.
And the British advanced quickly.
Very quickly. Gurkhas, 45 Commando, taking positions often without a fight. And British psychological warfare units were broadcasting surrender appeals.
What was happening with General Menendez at this point?
His morale finally cracked. Galtieri back in Argentina was telling him to fight on, invoking the military code fight till you've lost 50% of your men, use 75% of your ammo.
Unbelievable.
But Menendez felt abandoned. He radioed back something like, "I cannot ask more of my troops. We have no means, no support." He agreed to meet the British commanders. The surrender was signed that evening.
And the source emphasizes how close it was, even at the end.
Absolutely. British guns almost out of ammo, troops exhausted, hadn't eaten properly in days. Woodward said the task force was on the cliff edge of our capability.
But they held on.
Their will to win just outlasted the Argentine will.
So looking back, this deep dive really shows how those initial misperceptions just spiraled.
Completely. Argentina didn't believe Britain would fight. Britain wasn't sure how it could win. It was, as the source stresses, built on these dangerous perception gaps.
A victory against the odds, then. Logistics precarious, outnumbered.
Definitely. And helped significantly by Argentine mistakes.
Yeah.
Attacking warships instead of supply ships, for example, those bombs failing to fuse.
Huge factor.
But fundamentally, the book argues, the British won because of superior training, leadership, professionalism, that moral component.
The human cost, though. Over 250 British killed.
255 British killed, over 1,000 casualties total, The Argentines lost around 650 killed, many more wounded, and nearly 11,000 taken prisoner.
And the consequences, huge for both countries.
Massively. In Argentina, Galtieri was gone in days. The junta collapsed soon after. Democracy returned.
And for Britain,
Huge wave of national pride. A feeling, perhaps, of reversing decades of decline. Thatcher's political position massively strengthened, and the Navy kept its carriers. The Not Defense Review was scrapped.
any wider global ripples?
Surprisingly, yes. The Soviets apparently reassessed the British Army, beefed up their forces facing BAR in Germany. The U.S. maybe reevaluated its own ability to project power post-Vietnam, leading into operations like Grenada and Lebanon, though those had their own problems.
And the islanders themselves, their lives changed forever.
Completely transformed. That quiet 19th century lifestyle, gone. Big military presence, tourism development, and then the prospect of oil wealth potentially making them, as the source says, the richest people on Earth.
It really comes back to those moral factors you mentioned, willpower or morale.
Clausewitz would have recognized it instantly. Ultimately, it was the will to fight that proved decisive. It tells us so much about national identity, strategy, and just how unpredictable history can be.
The Falklands War. A short, sharp, distant conflict, but one packed with lessons about endurance, perception, and consequences that echo even today.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much do those intangible things, belief, pride, perception, sheer grit, actually shape outcomes, even when the material odds seem stacked against you?
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a clearer view of this really pivotal moment and maybe sparked some new questions for you to explore.